Hi, this is 365801 and this is going to be a if you like this then you might like that video. So for a long time I considered the Captive Prince to be very similar to Instagram. Like, it's over there for other people and I don't really know if I can dedicate the time and energy to it as I think it deserves. But I guess in September we found out I can do both. So I now have an Instagram. Hey, shameless plug. Check it out. I put a link in the description. And I also read The Captive Prince. Now, the reason I read The Captive Prince was because I had picked up Fence Volume 1 from Amazon for a really good price. And it kind of was like, oh yeah, C.S. Pacat wrote that trilogy. Had lots of, princes and they were captive. That's pretty much all I knew. But I also knew that she had a new volume coming out that was called Dark Rise, and I knew it was going to be coming out soon. I think it's out now, so by the time this video goes up, you can go and check it out. And also because I've been checking out a lot of audiobooks, and it just so happened that the second volume was on a really reduced price through Audible, and I thought I could just pick up the whole trilogy and have either a read-along or a listen on Audible. So that's what I did. And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. Both the first two volumes were especially good. The third volume helped to wrap everything up, but also there are the extra stories at the end that I do think is worth reading to have a complete story and to feel that sense of, that was a good story at the end. I think it really needed those extras. And I had planned to just do a standard review video, but I watched someone else's and it was so good. Jess in Romancelandia did a review of the Captive Prince trilogy by C.S. Pacat last year, so go and check out her video because she basically says everything that I would want to say, but in a much better way. Like, I could never. So what I'm going to do in this video is recommend some BL works that are kind of similar either in theme or issue, or might have some things that cross over. So hopefully you'll get something out of this video and kind of have a brief understanding of what the Captive Prince trilogy is all about as well. Now, the first print title I thought I would show you is Monster and the Beast. Now, you're thinking, hold on, there's no monsters in the Captive Prince trilogy, but there is a giant cinnamon roll character who has kind of very straight way of thinking, is very sort of black and white about the world, doesn't really work in the greys of personality and character, and of course, that is Cavo. Cavo is a giant cinnamon roll and doesn't really understand the ways of the world, is kind of looking at things just through his own perspective and doesn't really see the bigger picture. Whereas Liam on the other hand, is a sexy being, is a very sexy being, but a sexy being who knows how to captivate and also knows how to scheme and also knows how to manipulate. And so in that respect, they're very, very similar to Damon and Laurent. And I also like the fact that in The Prince's Gambit, there is a general sense that they are off gallivanting around the world, or at least are across the countryside, and they're having their adventures, and they're just chilling with each other and living their lives, and maybe being in the forest, and maybe being along a road, and maybe going into a wee town or a village. And that's exactly what happens in The Prince's Gambit. So for me, Monster and the Beast is basically the second book of the trilogy, just with slightly different characters. And also, like, there's like something going on underneath the whole story, but we just don't know about it yet, which is also kind of what's happening in The Prince's Gambit. So yes, I think Monster and the Beast might be something you want to check out if you especially liked the second volume. Now, the first volume of Captive Prince really sets the tone in terms of assault and abuse and kind of gives this general sense of impending anxiety that just makes me feel very, very uncomfortable. Like, at any minute now, something is going to happen to a character that I care about and I don't want to see it. Or here is something that's awful happening. We're just going to show it to you. And there is that general sense of, ugh, no. And there is another volume of manga that also has that, ugh, no kind of feeling that really stuck with me. And that is Samurai Love by Kazuma Kodaka. I know. It's really bad. Basically, some of the things that happen to the characters in Captive Prince happen off-page. What happens in Samurai Love is, yeah, some of it happens off-page, but a lot of it happens on the page, and that makes it really uncomfortable. But some people really like uncomfortable stories. I mean, think about Cast Heaven. It's a really, really popular series. This one, Samurai Love, also has issues of captivity and having to do things because you don't want to, and children not being cared for, and the awfulness of two people who should not be in a relationship being in a relationship, and the people around them scheming and plotting. It has a lot of themes in common. So if you liked the angsty, dark, and soul-crushing nature of the first volume of Captive Prince, you might like Samurai Love. Another series that I do think might be worth checking out, if you liked the aspects of two people from either side, very Romeo and Juliet, they shouldn't be together but they are, and there is the building tension and definite sexual activity going on with two people who don't necessarily know the actual identity of the people that they're with, or maybe they do, we don't know, but they definitely shouldn't be together unless they're honest with each other. Coyote by Ranma Ruzaria, there are 3 volumes out. This deals with Coyote and Marlene. They are from either sides, the werewolves and the mafia. They should not be together, there's a war going on, and yet they are, but they don't necessarily know exactly who each other is. And that's also something that happens in Captive Prince. Now, I would be remiss if I did not mention a long-running series, because we don't have a lot of them in BL, but Blue Morning is, so good. Now, I read this earlier this year, and I love it. I think probably my favourite thing this year. So good. It is 8 volumes long, so it's long. But so is Captive Prince. It's a trilogy. It's got extras. There's a lot going on. And in Blue Morning, we have something similar. 2 characters who are trying to navigate their relationship in a world where politics and scheming and underhanded tricks and maneuvering of people like they're pawns is also something that happens. It also has the idea of people not being who they say they are, or not being presented or represented in the way that they're supposed to be. That means that 2 people might be in a relationship and they don't actually know who they are. They don't even know who the other person is. This is what I loved about Blue Morning. And that's what I also really loved about Captive Prince. That element of, who are you? Who am I? Should we be together? Probably not. And I also like the scheming aspect of the characters. They both end up trying to scheme against each other. And in a sense, that's definitely what happens in King's Rising. Right at the end, there's an element of scheming going on. And an almost, it has to be an inevitable honesty too. So that's also something that happens in Blue Morning. Plus, it's a nice long story, and we don't get many of them in BL. Now, if what you liked was the sort of setting of Captive Prince, if you like the sort of medieval atmosphere, sort of the idea of 2 people travelling together, having adventures, very similar to Monster and the Beast, you will probably like Crimson Spell. This also has an element of what's going on, I don't really know. And I don't know because I still haven't read volume 6, so there's stuff I have no idea what's going on in this one. But it definitely has that sort of medieval setting vibe, but this one has some fantasy elements, some magic elements as well. The relationship between the 2 characters is not quite as fraught, or maybe it is. I still don't know. But it's worth reading as well. Crimson Spell. It's an oldie but a goodie. Now, I would be remiss if I did not mention a mangaka whose work really does encapsulate a lot of the themes that Captive Prince has, and even just in this one particular volume, and that is The Angel of El Hammburg by Aki. If Aki ever did fan artwork of Laurent and Damon, you know it would be stunning, you know it would be perfect. And that is exactly what this one volume is. It does have the European atmosphere. There's castles, there's betrayal, political intrigue, things that happen that are kind of left until the end and you don't really know if what happened was what happened and you have to kind of work it out. Oh, I just love it so much. Aki has the ability to produce such beautiful characters that are multifaceted in a way that other mangaka aren't, because she does it in such a subtle and gentle and quiet way that before you realise it, the character is so much more than what has been presented on the page. Oh, it's just, her ability is so amazing. I'm in awe. I love her so much. But this particular one volume that Yen Press produced, hardback, a single volume hardback, they just pulled out all the stops for this one, and I'm so proud to have a copy. It's like my pride and joy. I love it so much. But one of the other works that she did that hasn't actually been brought over in English, and I'm so depressed that it's not, is Sumente. And this is also one that deals with political intrigue, characters trying to discover something that's happened, people not being who they say they are, people finding out, a cinnamon roll who's kind of a bit oblivious to what's going on and has to kind of work out as the story goes that people aren't necessarily who they say they are, or what they've believed in the past isn't actually what has happened. Oh, Legna is amazing. Sumente is amazing. It's a 6-volume series at the moment. It's on hiatus. I'm so sad. I want more of it. I picked it up when I was in Japan, and I've continued to pick up as the volumes have been published in Japanese, and I have a great time trying to translate them. But oh my goodness, it is a brilliant story by Aki, and it really does have a lot of the Captive Prince elements in it too. So these were the ones that I thought in my collection had similar themes to Captive Prince. There's not actually that many, but there are a lot more, I think, in webcomic form. So the first one I want to show you is The Knight's Unfulfilled Dreams. Now, I read this earlier this year, and it also had a few of the same kind of themes. Someone being in a sort of European setting, someone being convinced of something that isn't actually true, someone not having the full knowledge of what another person's character is, and a sort of love affair that should not have taken place. And I do think that it's not a brilliant story, it's quite short, so if you want to check it out, The Knight's Unfulfilled Dreams is available on Leshin. Another title that is available on Leshin that I think has some of the same or similar themes as Captive Prince, that is Blood Bank. Now, it is a vampire story, but it does have a sort of fantasy European-esque setting. It also has a cutie with blonde hair, a beauty with dark hair, and their simmering tension and their building romance, and the fact that they're from the opposite sides of society. One is a vampire, one is not, and they should not be together. But it also has the setting of things that have happened in the past that we're not entirely sure of, things that have been swept under the carpet or repressed, things that we shouldn't know, and it creates this bigger story across the whole of the country. The whole of society has been shifted because of the romance between these two characters. So in a lot of senses, Captive Prince has some similarities with this one. So if you are into Captive Prince and you also like vampire stories, Blood Bank might be for you. But this story is the one that I instantly thought of when I thought of Captive Prince, and that is King's Maker. There are a lot of similarities between King's Maker and Captive Prince. There is, of course, the blonde-haired character and the dark-haired character, the fact that there is a sense of captivity. There is also the very real and unfortunate aspect of young people and children being abused when they should not be. There is political intrigue. There is the relationship between the two that is sort of world shifting, changes things. What's happened in the past is kind of coming to light, and it is, I think, ongoing with the second season. So if you're interested, check out King's Maker. It is very similar in a lot of ways to Captive Prince as well. So I hope you've found some of these recommendations useful and that you have found something that you might want to read, whether it's that you have read some of these works and now you want to read Captive Prince, or you read Captive Prince and now you think, oh, I wouldn't mind picking up some of these manga or the webcomics. Maybe you have some recommendations for me and I'd really like to hear them, especially if there's slow burn romance or political intrigue. These are the types of stories that I have found I really enjoy. By reading Captive Prince, it really did make me think that we don't get many big, long, sweeping, epic, slow burn romances in print. We might get them in digital, for example. Tri-Cornered Window is a kind of slow burn, and it's kind of an epic, interesting series. We do get long-running series with slow burn that's, Sekaiichi Hatsukoi or World's Greatest First Love, but is that a big epic? No, it's not. In Chinese BL, we are getting them. MXTX's volumes from Seven Seas that we're going to get in December. I'm really looking forward to them, but they're not in manga form either. We're not getting these big, long, sweeping epics. Not in the same way that shoujo manga is. For example, Shirayuki Hime, the Snow White with the Red Hair, or Yona of the Dawn, or even Requiem of the Rose King. It's very political. I do know that some of these types of stories do exist in BL manga in Japan, and they just haven't been brought over due to the investment that's required and the lack of faith that they will actually sell well. I do know that recently Suzuki Tsuta put up a post saying she was really happy that her latest work is being published either in Italian or French, and they're very happy about it because there are more people in the world being able to access their works. But we don't have that in English yet. I think it's called Barbarites? I'm not entirely sure. I don't know anything about it other than it's by Suzuki Tsuta, and I would probably enjoy reading it. It looks to me like it might be something that is in a very similar sort of vein as Captive Prince, so something that we might enjoy. But we don't have these big sweeping epic ones. And it did just make me think that Captive Prince works as a novel, and it works because it's written in English. But in terms of getting that in manga form, we might not get something like that in the future, which is a real shame, but it did make me think about it. If you have, as I said, any recommendations for me, please put them down in the comments, because I always like to check out other people's recommendations, especially if there's anything that you think I missed out in terms of what is available and that it just screams Captive Prince to you and why did I not mention it. Please let me know. Thanks for watching this. I hope you found it interesting or helpful. Remember to go check out the review. I'll put the link down in the description for Jess in Romancelandia. A brilliant review of the series. Take care everyone. Remember, every day is a BL day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!